So I'm Brian David Johnson. I'm a futurist at the Intel Corporation. I'm also an author. I write about science fact and science fiction. My most recent book on science fact is called Screen Future, the Future of Entertainment, Computing, and the Devices We Love. And I've also written several science fiction short stories and a novel. So when I tell people that I'm a futurist at Intel, they generally think it's kind of like science fiction. So they think it's this sort of far out thing, which actually it's not. Because at Intel we make microchips, which takes about 5 to 10 years. So it's my job to look out to 2020 because we need to have an understanding of what the world will be like and what people will want to do in 2020 so that we can start building those technologies now. So it's a very pragmatic type of futurism. Now, futurism more as a practice kind of comes out of social science. It comes out of what consumers are doing. So in that way, really, to understand the future and to understand sort of where things are going, you have to be firmly rooted in the past. You have to be firmly rooted in what consumers have done, what people have done, and you also have to have an understanding of sort of what people would like to do. And how you learn that is you talk to people today, you read today. You have to be very, very present in what's going on today and have a deep understanding of what happened in the past to really accurately get an understanding of where things might go in the future.
I'm glad you mentioned the world because I've been wondering, with all the talk of future technologies and its commercial concerns, if there are things out there being developed that are really going to actually help world health or third world countries or things that might not have such a rapid payback.
I think that's one of the things that's really important about futurism, and it's really one of the bedrock ideas in futurism. So as futurism kind of came up in the 60s and 70s, it was really based upon sociology. It was really based upon long-term planning, and a lot of work that went on there was understanding the effect not only on markets, but understanding the effect on the world. So when I do work with futurecasting, the first thing I do when I'm trying to get an idea of what the world of computing will be like in 2020 is I need to develop a vision of what the world will look like in 2020. And the world just isn't in America. It just isn't in North America. It just isn't in Western civilization. It just isn't built full of businesses and consumers. It's actually full of people. And I think it's very, very important as we develop these models, as we develop these visions, that we have to have an understanding of everybody who's in the world and knowing that everything that we build, every technology we put out there, everything we try to do affects the entire world. And once we have that understanding, once we've built that model, then we can be very specific. We can, do the business of work. We can go and figure out what products we need to develop, what markets we could go into, things like that. But we can also start to look at the good. And as you start to look at these different areas where you can help people, I think it provides an on-ramp for people who want to do good, whether it could be NGOs, it could be corporations, or it could be individuals. Because once you have that model of where things are going, it gives people a pathway so that we can actually make a direct effect on the future. Because we have to understand that the future isn't something that just happens willy-nilly. We build the future. We build the future every day. And it starts with an understanding of that we have control over where things are going, and then we have to be active. We have to be active participants in the future that we want to live in. So one example of using science fiction as a development tool is we did a project called the Morrow Project, and it was based out of Germany. And what we did, it was actually in Germany, it was called Übermorgen. Which is really roughly translated the day after tomorrow. But the English translation that we used was the Morrow Project. And in the Morrow Project, we took work that we were doing inside of Intel's labs. And we took that information and we shared it with 4 science fiction authors. Well, they were science fiction authors and futurists. So they took this sort of catalog of things that we were building, and then they went off and they wrote 4 pieces of science fiction. And then we've brought that back, and it's called the Morrow Project, and we've published it out. I did an introduction to it, and it's available free online. It has, of course, the German version and the English version. There's also podcasts, and we're going to be, I think, publishing a version to kind of send out as giveaways. But it really shows you a very specific example of taking science fact, sharing it with creative people, sharing it with people who are building content, and then brings it back in. It's really high quality. It's really well done, and then using that, number one, inside of Intel. So inside of Intel, we take that information and we share it with our engineers. And I actually have conversations internally with engineers about what they thought of the story, what they thought of the technology before they read the story, what they thought of the technology after it, and giving them an understanding, again, of those human implications. But then what's been really fascinating for me as we sort of sent this out online and we started having conversations with people was that it's gotten the general public. It's got regular people reading science fiction and starting to have a conversation. Started, again, engaging in this process of envisioning the future. Because what I love about that is if you base science fiction on science fact, and then you get people's imaginations engaged, it allows us to start asking questions. It allows us to ask, what is the future that we want to live in? How do we want to participate in that future? And for me, with the Morrow Project, seeing that come out of that conversation, there's nothing better than that.